All right, it looks like our recording should be up and running. Thanks for joining today, this last cataloging roundtable of the year. I'm Lauren Kelly, Technical Services Consultant here at the Department of Libraries. Let me pull up my agenda as we normally do. All right, yes, here we are, November 25th, 10 a.m. We have folks coming in. Right. Now that I'm set up on my two screens, my email is right here under the notes section, just my name at vermont.gov. You're welcome to send things in to either talk about, to share. Always happy to get suggestions for topics or questions that you have or good things that you want to share. But this email, my name, is where to send those things. If you are interested in the recordings of our past cataloging roundtables, if you go to our technical services website here, you can see all the linked agendas, and at the top you'll notice on this one the recording link is blank because I will retroactively put that link to today's session there for the recording. So it's kind of the one-stop shop, and those live on the Tech Services VTlib website there. Always linked up at the top. And then just a note about next year. Here we are thinking about 2026. The roundtables are going to take place February 24th. It's always the last Tuesday of the month, February 24th, May 26th, August 25th, November 24th, with that alternating slot of happening in the morning or the afternoon. Yeah, and I'm always open to taking suggestions about what timing may work better for libraries. Let me know, always trying to keep it flexible. But yet some consistency at the same time. So for sake of consistency, I have given my name, Lauren Kelly. I'm here at the Department of Libraries, and the ILS that we use here at the state is Verso. So I will go down the list of attendees, and if you can't unmute, if you don't have a microphone, if you just want to put in the chat an introduction to yourself, just because we are a cataloging community here in the state. So I will go down the list otherwise, and first we have Deborah, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
So hi, I'm Deb Allers. I like to go by Deb. I'm at Norwich University. We are a Dewey library here and we use WMS.
Cool, thank you, Deb. Next we have Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet. I'm at Rutland and we use Koha as part of the Catamount Consortium.
Awesome. And Jess is next on the list. And I know in the past, Jess, we don't have a mic set up for you. So maybe we'll come back to you if you do unmute. Otherwise, John, if you would like to introduce yourself, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to mute and unmute. I'm kind of unmuted at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm John. I'm at the Pember Library Museum in Granville, New York, kind of a border town. And
Awesome.
so we use I'm in the Southern Adirondack Library System. They use Polaris.
Cool. Thank you. And next we have Megan.
Hi there. I'm Megan. I'm at the St. Johnsbury Athenaeum, and we use Koha.
Awesome. And is the St. Johnsbury Athenaeum, is that part of Vocal or Catamount?
Vocal.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Thanks. And next we have Ruth.
Hi, Ruth Hay at the Landfill Library in Hyde Park. We're part of Vocal.
Awesome. Thanks for coming today. And last but not least, we have Sarah on the list. Not hearing anything from Sarah. Oh, yes, here we are. Sarah is at Kellogg Hubbard Library in Montpelier using Koha with the Catamount Library Network. Thank you for sounding off in the chat. Yeah, we try and keep the roundtable fairly informal. There is an agenda, but we can kind of go through it and add things as we so need. So feel free to interrupt or put things in the chat. Let me know if you have questions, comments, concerns. But I do try and prepare some cataloging news or resources that I can share. And so the first link that I have here, an accessibility group, or rather the IFLA, which the acronym meaning is escaping me at the moment, but they put together a statement and principles document for making metadata more accessible. And I've linked it. I'm going to stop sharing real quick that so that I can share this window instead. Where did it go? There it is. This is their document here. It's kind of interesting to read through. It has a little bit of history about accessibility and metadata and things to kind of keep in mind, recommendations, just interesting to think about. Maybe not applicable to your library, but maybe it is. So that's linked there. And all of the things, as always, that I share, totally optional to interact with or not. The second thing is, my thing that almost always stays on every agenda. The cataloging lab does a roundup of news, stories, articles, like whether that be in journals or, other news articles, or webinars, education opportunities, things like that. The folks over there do a really great job of basically every month, rounding up interesting cataloging. It often has to do with critical cataloging. Always interesting to read through news there. It's a nice kind of one-stop shop. So I like to add that link in there to check out at your leisure if you'd so like. And then probably the most important thing that I linked here today is this Library of Congress MARC cataloging update. I'll pull it up in a second, but the most kind of important facets from it is that the Library of Congress wanted to share out the fact that moving forward, they're not doing this retroactively to their MARC records, but moving forward, they're going to be trying to prefer full-length text versus using codes within MARC. And the example that they gave was that they prefer a 340 kind of medium statement in case an item needs kind of an intervening media, either a player or something interesting about the material that the item is made of, versus using a 007, which relies on a code for that. The 340 field, you can actually spell out those things. So we can look at that in a minute. But they're trying to kind of get back to the heart of RDA, which is description access. And so using words instead of relying on codes with MARC is something that they're leaning into more. And they're also talking about, instead of having one long 264 field for publishing information, if multiple publishers are listed, if multiple places are listed for a publisher, they're going to start repeating the 264 for every instance instead of just repeating an A a couple times or repeating a B. Once again, there's an example in that sheet, which I'll pull up in a second. But the last summation from this document that I thought was interesting to think about, and once again, this is just Library of Congress doing this. This isn't MARC rules changing, it's just kind of their application of it shifting, which is interesting to note. In their 650 subject fields, the subfield V for form or genre is going to be used less, especially when there's a 655 term. So it's kind of making some subject headings a bit simpler. So let me pull up that document. It's funny because somehow it slipped. Oh, to share the window, not the screen. Hold on. All right, so this document is what they put out, and you can see that it's dated from February. It somehow slipped off my radar this whole year. It also does not look very official. But it's interesting just talking about how Library of Congress, like I said, creating more modern MARC bibliographic records, talking about how they're not doing this retrospectively, they're just doing this going forward. And they have kind of an interesting summation of the history of MARC and its relation to RDA and previous rules, which if you've taken my cataloging class, those things should be not entirely foreign. But then they go into these changes that they're adopting. So here we can see that the example with the 007, it's, you know, a lot of what I would lovingly term gobbledygook. It's those codes that the computer can read, but maybe a human can't quite parse that on first glance. Whereas with a 340 field, you can see that it's pointing out that this material has cardboard, calotype, not in, I haven't dug into what that necessarily is, and that it's using primarily black and white. It's just a, you know, more user-friendly kind of way to spell out those things. It's an interesting move, but it kind of makes sense. And then they have, you know, pointing out which when people ask me for cataloging help often with original cataloging, we'll discuss, you know, what is redundant when starting from scratch. You know, with their example of the 007 and a 340 field, they're pointing out the same information. So Library of Congress is saying, well, we're going to go with where can we spell it out clearly? So that's, you know, interesting consideration. And then here's where they talk about a 260 being able to list multiple publishers and locations. Now, making sure that those things are all represented once very clearly in the MARC. They have a note about series transcription as well. If there are multiple series that an item falls into, just repeating the 490 instead of including all that information on one line. And then this last part is where it talks about the subject headings and using a 655 field instead of having a subfield V on a 650. So an interesting document. Always good to see the Library of Congress sharing out maybe some guidance or at least what they're doing at the very least. Any questions about those links there? Oh, I see there's something in the, oh. Having tech difficulty, never fun. That is fine. All right, so yeah, those are kind of the cataloging interesting tidbits that I've come across. If anyone has any links to share or any resources, go ahead and share them. Otherwise, we can move on to conundrums or questions folks have with things that they've come across. So I did round up. There was a conversation on the listserv, maybe 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, about supplies. And so I figured I would round up some of the responses of covering material for paperbacks. So these are some responses from folks. I think this conversation may have happened on the school libraries chat, but always a question that comes up perennially at public libraries. So there are some links, a shout out to the MHEC discount for Demco, which public libraries should be covered in that as well. Yeah, so just an interesting thing that came up. If folks have conundrums or questions they want to bring up, now's the time. I will add them to our agenda here, or we can move on to successes.
I have some questions about
Yeah, go for it, John.
cataloging. I wasn't quite sure if this is the place to bring questions or not. It's just some interesting things that we're trying to do at the library, and my staff has we've been discussing things. And one of the
Awesome, yeah.
sections they have is called the reading list section, which was originally formed of all the books that were assigned for the school projects and stuff like that. And it's kind of outdated. They don't really use it anymore. And so I'm trying to decide whether to put, we're going to make it into a classic section, I guess. And then I'm determining on whether I'm going to keep a book in that section or actually put it in the 800s or wherever else it belongs. And so I think my thing the thing I decided was to, if it's a single work by a single author, then it would go in that classic section or in the classicals if it's back in the Greek and Roman. But if it's an anthology, then I would tend to put it more in the 800s. So, and that's kind of where I'm going with that right now. Another part of that section is the ever popular Great Books set. And I'm thinking, I guess in my mind, cataloging is where I keep talking to my staff about this is where part of marketing, part of the cataloging is to make things easy to find. And so the great books are cataloged partly fiction, partly not, but they're all together, but they're not in order. It's very odd. So how do you catalog that? I want to keep it as a set, but where would I put it as a set and how would it be cataloged? Because some of the books are labeled as fiction and some are not.
So are these great books? Are these like the Library of America books? Aha, you have oh, look at that. Huh.
Oops. I have the mirror image going though. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Huh.
think,
Yeah, that's
maybe if I can
interesting.
get my, oops. Sorry,
Yeah,
turn the
John, I
camera
don't know
off.
if you can mirror it or not, but yeah, I do see what you're talking about. Um, yeah. I
Yeah.
when
So
I
this
worked,
is labeled as a fiction,
right.
but the other one has a nonfiction number.
Yeah. And are
Well, I was just
most of
curious.
those single works or are they anthologies?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Interesting.
One here
Um,
is Tolstoy, one is Calvin, the ones I brought up. And there's a couple of index volumes. And then there are some anthologies of multiple authors.
yeah. Yeah, this makes me think of those Library of America volumes where some of them are, some of them are prose, some of them are collected poetry, some of them are collected fiction. Um, I guess my first question would be would you want to keep them as the great books in a
Yes.
section for itself, and then retroactively catalog them with Dewey 800s?
So where would I put the set in the first place? Would I put it in my classics section?
That could be a
But then they would still be numbered. I was just kind of wondering if they could be numbered consecutively so that they could be in order, but there's really no way. Can you catalog it as a set?
yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I would think that, yeah, you're a little bit faced with having to make it its own section that doesn't live within something else if you want to have its own
Hmm.
consecutively cataloged
I
order.
think it actually is within that section.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's something they call GB for great books,
Ah,
but it's in the RL section.
okay.
But it's kind of weird because if you're looking for a book, they're cataloged, um, like I said, partly alphabetical by fiction and partly by number, and they're all mixed up. They're not in sequence
Right.
at the moment.
In sequence of like the
Well,
Great Book series order.
the volume numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. I wonder if you could kind of weigh your options of simplifying your cataloging for that collection just down to the volume number, but making sure that in your cataloging in your ILS in your database, uh, you're capturing author, all of the works in it, as well as that volume number. I
Hmm.
wonder if the 490 and the 830 might be your friend uh, to really have the like point two, here is in the record where you look
Hmm.
in order to get some cataloging guidance in a way,
Yeah.
if you
I
follow.
I suppose if someone were to look for great books, that's how I would, it would come up great books. Or if someone was looking for Calvin or Tolstoy, it would still come up because
Yeah,
it's in a lower level than or a higher level rather than the volume number. Yeah,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, we do have a cataloger in the SAL system, but I just thought this would be just kind of a fun question to ask.
yeah. No, definitely. I worked at a library that flooded, and we had a generous community member who did purchase all of the Library of America books. And so then it was like, okay, this is an established series that does consist of a bunch of different things. How should we catalog it? What section is it going into? And it ended up getting its own section because it was a large enough collection. Um, and it was a well-known enough type of book um, that it just made sense to have it over
Mhm.
kind of around the corner from our nonfiction. And then I want to say that it got Dewey numbers applied to it within that section based on what the material was.
Kind of sounds like what you would do with the old WPA materials from the 1930s Writers Project stuff.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Rivers of America and
Yeah.
a very similar thing. I brought another book along, which was the same thing I came across at random, are the Foxfire series.
Hmm.
some of those are labeled as, this one particular one I brought was in the 917s, but they're all listed as under, I looked on the Library of Congress, they're all listed as folklore, but they're actually more how-to books. This is
Mm,
how we did things. And so
yeah,
I, I feel like they've been kind of mislabeled really because of their content. But
yeah,
some of those books are scattered. They're not grouped as a set.
yeah.
Bushcraft. That's
Yeah,
an
Megan
interesting.
writes,
Yeah.
I would categorize Foxfire as bushcraft. That's cool. That could be its own section entirely.
Put that along with Ernest Thompson Seton and bushcraft. What number would that be? Yeah.
I'm
But it
gonna
is
go
kind of
to,
interesting because some of they're all about kind of how to things, but some of them are in different sections because they're in a slightly different area of the South or Arkansas or wherever it is they came from. Um,
right. Huh. Yeah. And
but I
then,
was all I was always thinking like the bushcraft works really well because then people are looking for how-to stuff can go and find it, whereas where they're at right now, no one would ever think to look there, browse it.
yeah, I really like what you said, John, about part of cataloging is marketing, because you're so right on the money with that. Um, and it's interesting to see also, uh, helpful in your case with your question about the Great Books series is that one can always try one thing and then try a different thing, right? So, um, it's always interesting to see how circulation of a collection or a topic will change based on where it's cataloged. Um, so that is a good thing, time consuming as always, unfortunately. But it is a potential saving grace to our marketing.
Well, just talking about it it's kind of funny because I got looked at our reading list section, and all the ladies that work here have like 5 times they call them part-time. They call them clerks, but they're actually more librarians than anything else. But um, the week after they said, "Oh, this stuff never goes out," until a week after we started discussing it, and all of a sudden they started going out to other libraries like hotcakes.
Huh,
Like it had just gone through the ether, like, oh, there's RL books at the Pember. Let's order one. It was very odd. But the more you
yeah,
talk about it, the more they circulate, apparently.
yep. Huh, interesting. Yeah,
I think that kind of even brings up for me like the challenges of cataloging like titles in the series and
Mm.
whether you catalog them individually or as the series themselves. And I don't know about you all, but in smaller libraries, we wear a lot of hats. So you look at it in different perspectives. So I'll get an ILL request for a particular volume from a set, and I'll see sometimes that it can either be cataloged by the series or it can be cataloged individually by the title in the series. And then I'm looking at those records for holdings, like to figure out, well, which record has the most holdings for that, as far as requesting the item on interlibrary loan, and some kind of teasing out those series can be
yeah,
really challenging. So it's sort of a conundrum ongoing as far as, do you catalog them as individual titles or do you catalog them as a larger series?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
another thing we've been discussing. Like Robert Parker, or other series. They have a series now. Who do you classify it under PAR, or do you catalog it as part of the series, like the Alex Cross series and the Pattersons, even though they have completely different authors? And so, yeah, it's an ongoing
yeah.
discussion.
With that question, I always come back to, and once again, the marketing kind of question, who's the reader and where are they going to look, right? Yeah, it's interesting with some of the contemporary fiction series that are, yeah, now totally written by not the person who gets the largest typeface on the cover. But a good cataloging record, time permitting, using a 490, using an 830, being able to point to both those aspects of the series title and also series by author. Those are separate 800 versus 830. You can use both. You can Prevy one. But Deb brings up a great point with how that then impacts ILL. And in that case, okay, that's not redundant information and may save, time down the road for other librarians by including both of those 800 and 830 mark fields pointing out the series by series name and by author. And I think in all of those fields, there's a subfield for pointing out the volume number. And then I would also make a plug for a 264 field for a varying title. That can be a really helpful field to point out if a book is listed or if the title page presents a series title and you know that someone going to your catalog is going to be looking for that, you can kind of represent maybe an alternative search in a 264. So that just kind of helps cover the bases.
Seems to show up mostly for me in mysteries.
Hmm.
Like again, the Spencer novels and things like that. Or how would you? So in the 264, you could put Spencer, or would you
I
put it
would,
somewhere else?
yeah, in that case, I would try and keep a 264 based on what's written. But I know that I think with like Robert B. Parker, there might be like a Robert B. Parker's, apostrophe
Mm.
S, and then either the title or, the name of the series or something like that.
Would that
But in the case of it falls under the series, then I would point you to the 430, an 800, or an 830. And in the case of like a deceased author where it's still being written, you can still credit that deceased author in an 800 field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just on the basis of trying to find them, I know we have several. Parker comes to mind because there are several other authors that are kind of following that series, but half the time in the other systems and in our own, it's listed by that secondary author, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's cataloged with Parker, and I think we kind of go with whoever's name was on top in the larger type
right.
as the author or where it goes in the collection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in that case, it's a little bit trickier to make a decision about who's going in the 100 field, but I would always say, put the actual author who wrote it in the 100 and then use that deceased or series author in the 800. And I know that sometimes it can be hard to figure out like what's next in the series or how it fits into a series. So using things like Goodreads, or I think there's a website called Next in a Series, can be helpful for those. I'll track those
Mhm.
links down and include them.
I think there's one I've used called Books in Order.
Oh, yeah. I'll include those links. And of course, I'm taking notes of our conversation here for our agenda. So I so appreciate bringing up this conversation.
It's kind of fun. I don't do any cataloging of my own. They, like I said, they have a cataloger at the main Sal's office who does the records if we have something new that's not in the system. So, but it's kind of, she's very open about suggestions, or she has suggestions, or we might, this is what we want, and she supplies it.
Yeah.
So it's very good. But
Yeah. That's
yeah,
nice to have that working relationship, and you can really base it on your knowledge of your patrons and the way your library is set up. All important considerations. Great. Well, thanks all. See there's something in the chat I want to make sure. Yeah, either DIY survival or outdoor activities. I wonder what the kind of overarching term for that would be in either Library of Congress or maybe the closest Dewey number.
that's because there's no actual bushcraft
Yeah,
designation.
I looked up, I used the word bushcraft in Dewey online and I got no results back. So,
There should be one.
right? Time for expansion, I guess, in that area. But I'm sure there is something about survival or outdoor activities. But maybe I'll dig into that and we'll come to a more authoritative term according to something, and I can send out a message if I find that. Okay, I'm caught up on notes, caught up in the chat. Any other thoughts or questions around that or a different topic?
I was looking at some of my notes from some conference the other day, and I ran across the Homo saurus, and I was wondering how is that going? That's something we would like to do, but we're a small library, and I have to say we really haven't looked into it at all, and it might be. I'm thinking so many folks feel under attack. Doing something with that could be a positive thing.
Yeah. You are not the only library to ask that exact question and have that
Okay.
exact thought. And I was just reaching out to a library who I had talked to in the springtime or early summer about implementing this subject heading vocabulary. And I mean, the nice thing about this vocabulary, it's free, it's online, the versions get updated pretty easily and they're easy to access, but it is a question of how much retrospective cataloging do you have time for? Can you actually do? And then there's also a question of how much of that work could be automated by your ILS and their backend. But I'm always happy to consult with implementing that vocabulary at your library. Yeah, it's definitely not a quick solution, but there's a couple of different avenues. And in fact, I reached out to the library that had reached out earlier this year today because in the roundup of webinars and whatnot, ALA just had a presentation. It is unfortunately behind a paywall. But let me pull up what I sent them. I found this website that has pretty clear. Do you know what? I will share my screen. This website here, it's an alliance. I don't know where their library is. Portland, Oregon. This is their page about their implementation project of this vocabulary, the Homosaurus. They have context, they set goals, they're, holding themselves accountable with what they need to do. They did get volunteer help. They, you know, outlined their training sessions, their communication about it, and there's a workflow instructions Google Doc, which you can dig into, but I will link this because I found it to be pretty user friendly, and even just kind of to get your feet under you in thinking about what would this kind of project look like. When I had met with a library earlier this year, we talked about the scalability of it. Do we want to start with a really small section, try it out, see what goes into this project, maybe set up a flow? Do we want to start with, specific material? Scaling it to what might work best for staff time, efforts, things like that. I'm also very big on documentation, so I like seeing a website like that where you can see what someone else has done. But I found that website because I was looking for an ALA webinar that they did just have earlier this month. And it was a big retroactive project. I'll share the window for this one. Yes, please. Once again, there is a price tag, unfortunately, for this webinar that just happened. But this is an example where they did work with their ILS, Backstage Library Works, to do kind of a conversion process of specific Library of Congress subject headings to be updated to the Homosaurus terms. I don't know if it was a case of replacement or if it was in addition to, because that's an option. I think it's a great option that you can just add to things and not have to necessarily take away things unless you have, a conversation about really what your end goal would be. But I almost wonder if reaching out to either of these presenters could be a good idea to get a handle on what they presented on, because there is not a public link. But it does go to show that this conversation is happening right now at many libraries within our state and outside of our state. So I'm happy to meet with you, Ruth, or whoever might be involved to talk about what size, what scale, what ideas might be helpful, whatever you might need. Oh, you are muted. I know you clicked it on and then it went off.
Okay. Um, so thank you. That sounds great. Um, Amy and I haven't specifically discussed it at this time. Amy's our director. But it is something I would think maybe we can start to look at in the later winter.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so thank you, Lauren. I'm glad I did bring it up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought it up too. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
thank you.
definitely yeah, many libraries are having that question, and it's nice that
Okay.
there's, some things that we can
Mhm.
point to.
Okay, and maybe with the VLA conference this year, I would like to maybe propose that something, you know, there's a seminar
Yes.
on that.
Yeah, I would
Okay,
love that. I
good.
think, yeah, and it would be nice to collaborate on something like that. So let's
Yeah.
talk, Ruth.
Okay, thank you very much, Lauren.
Awesome. And I see, Megan, you had a hand raised.
Yes, hello. I just wanted to confirm, I haven't done cataloging in such a long time. And I just got this new position. So was just wondering, the next core cataloging class you guys are offering is in April?
Yes, you know what? I have
Okay.
the dates right in front of me. April 15th through May 13th. That's
Okay.
Wednesdays at 1 p.m. So that'll
Okay.
be the shape of that course. And registration for that course is going to open at 8 a.m. 4 weeks before that class
Okay.
starts. So let me grab that date for you just so that you can put it on your calendar. Okay, so it starts the 14th, 8th, the 1st. The 25th, March 18th. March 18th at 8 a.m. I'm going to add it to the agenda. March 18th at 8 a.m. The next cataloging class will open for registration. Registration will be on LibCal. Yeah, we're
Okay, great.
slowly getting it down so that the wait list is being addressed, but I do recommend setting a reminder for 8 a.m. because they
Oh,
do fill up.
thank you. And
Yeah.
I had to walk away a few times. I'm sorry. But uh, all the resources you shared today, you'll share them with us? Perfect. Okay,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
will post them to the technical services web page. Let me just put the link in the chat. Um, on this page, you can see past agendas. You will be able to see this agenda when I have the recording link, and all the resources and all the conversation that we had today will be linked there. Okay. I want to make a note real quick of the upcoming cataloging basic class. Yeah, so March 18th at 8 a.m. And then if for whatever reason that class does not work out, we will be doing one in the fall in September. So there will be classes next year, 2 of them of the basic. Okay. Cool. Thanks for asking that question. That's important thing to bring up. All right, the last thing that I have to share is that, oh, I'm not sharing. Now I am sharing. The Vermont Department of Libraries does use the website LibCal for kind of our library of things items. There are story walks there. There are book sets. Our discussion sets are going to get added there, and any kind of equipment. We have microphones. We have cable internet testers. But there's a website there for them, and I just kind of revamped some of the cataloging. It's an ongoing process, but we're finding that this is a pretty good website, and I believe libraries that are participating in KitKeeper are also now using this website, LibCal. So I just wanted to share that out, that, always a different cataloging project going on in my realm as well, much like at your libraries. Do folks have other things they'd like to bring up? The table is totally open. Feel free. Otherwise, we may be winding down. We filled almost an hour, which here I was thinking it would be a smaller pre-Thanksgiving holiday group, but y'all brought great conversations. I will add details to the agenda and try and link as much as I can with things that we covered. And I will get that posted on the website that's linked in the chat once this recording is complete. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, and you can always reach out to me at any time. You know my email.
No, thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming, John.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I said that the things I don't know about cataloging could fill volumes.
Yep. That is the way it is, which I hope that the roundtable can be a good resource for anyone to identify those things and also help each other with those things. We're definitely all in this ball game, all in this boat together.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop the recording. I hope that everyone